Okay, so we're going to look at all the different types of data today, just to kind of get the information. So the data breakdown is that when we're looking at data, there's categorical and numerical data. Categorical data is usually represented with a bar graph or a frequency table. Numerical data is usually represented with a dot plot, stem and leaf, or a scatter plot. So we're going to look at the different types. We're going to start with the frequency tables. It says represents the number of times an event occurs or happens. So frequency table is how frequent it is, okay, or how frequent it happens. So you're going to take the information from the chart and put it into the frequency table. So here's your chart, and over here is your frequency table. The first thing you need to know when you're making a frequency table is that you have to have a title, okay, or a label. Whatever your title is for your chart usually is going to be your title for your frequency table. And then you have your different modes or information that you have within your chart here. Okay, so what you're going to do is quickly go through, and you can either do tally marks or you can do numbers and fill in your frequency chart. And then you're going to tell me which mode of transportation was used most by kids going to school. So remember, think most frequent. So which number was used most frequently? Okay, so this is what your frequency table should have looked like. You could have done tally marks or you could have done numbers. I did both so that you could see. So there was 9 students that were bus riders, 5 students were car riders, and 4 students that walked. So which mode of transportation was used most by the kids going to school? Was the bus. Okay. All right, let's look at the graph, the bar graph. It says use data from the table to make a bar graph. So I've already made the bar graph for you on this one, okay? So we have our title. This is our chart, the football game. We have a label or title for one, and then we have a title for this one. So we have game and then score. All right, so then when we look at our bar graph, it says every graph needs a title. On a bar graph, label the X and Y axis accordingly. So I labeled the X game because we're looking to see how many points they scored in each game. So game is the X axis, number of points score, or the score would be the Y axis. So I put number of points, but so you could have also put score. That would have been correct as well. Okay, and then you've done bar graphs before. Okay, so you've got your x-axis, you've got your y-axis, and then we have the title of the graph, football scores. Okay, so using that data, I want you to tell me how many points were scored in game 4. How many more points were scored in game 4 than in game 2? So look at your data. How many points were scored in the first 3 games? And then what's the total number of points scored? Okay, so how many more points were scored in game 4 than in game 2? Well, game 4, it shows me there was 24 points. Game 2, they scored 12. So how many more you should have subtracted? 24 minus 12. And your answer was 12. Okay, how many points were scored in the first 3 games? So that means you needed to look at game 1, which was 21, game 2, which was 12, and game 3, and that was 15. And then if we're looking for a total number of points scored in 3 games, we're adding. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 2, 3, 4. So 48 points were scored in the first 3 games. And you can put points on there if you wanted. And then finally, what was the total number of points scored? Well, if I know game 1, 2, and 3, they had 48 points. I only need to look at game 4 and see, oh yeah, that was 24 points. And you're going to add, because again, we're looking for a total. So 8 plus 4 is 12. 4, 5, 6, 7, 72 points scored. Okay, so that's a bar graph. Now let's look at dot plot, which you've already done. A dot plot is a graph used to show frequency of data along a number line. So here's our frequency table. And the title of the table is weight of bag of apples. So it gives you a just random sampling of the weight of some apples. And you're going to use the information to create a dot plot. So on your paper that you have, you're going to create a dot plot using this number line down here. So I'm going to start with 0. I'm going to go to 4. All right. So figure out what you're going to put, where you're going to put your numbers. How are you going to space them out? What are you going to label them? Okay. The label or title of the dot plot is weight of bag of apples. You have to have that. So quickly fill in this information on your paper. Okay, so I labeled mine by halves. Since all of my numbers are whole numbers or the fractions are 1/2, I went ahead and labeled 0 1/2, 1, 1 1/2, 2, 2 1/2, 3, 3 1/2, 4. Now, you could have just done 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then made sure that you knew where the half went, okay? It's completely up to you. So I'm going to start here, 2 1/2. I'm going to put a dot. 1, 3 1/2, 3, 2 1/2, 2, 2 1/2, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1 1/2, 2 1/2, 2 1/2. Now, it doesn't matter how you worked it, okay? Just as long as you make sure that you have all your information. So 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. There should be 15 total dots, okay? There should be 15 total dots. Now answer the questions. The greatest bag of apples weighs, okay, use your information. The smallest bag of apples weighs, use your information again. And then what's the range? Remember range. We talked about yesterday. Range is where you take the biggest number and subtract the smallest number from it. All right, so the greatest bag of apples is 3 1/2 pounds. Okay, the smallest bag of apple is 1 pound. And what's the range of weight? So if I have 3 1/2, and I'm going to take away 1 pound, 3 minus 1 is 2, and the fraction stays the same. So it's 2 1/2 pounds. Okay, all right. Stem and leaf. Stem and leaf shows data arranged by place value. All right, same thing. You're taking information in it from a chart, which has a title, miniature golf scores, and then you're going to make a stem and leaf chart. Again, your stem and leaf has to have a title or a label, sorry. Okay, fix that on your paper. Miniature golf scores. All right, you're going to have a stem and you're going to have a leaf. So I've already given you the stems, and you're going to input the leaves based on this information. So look at your thing. It says key 5-3 or represents 53. So it equals 53, or it could say 5-3 represents 53. Okay, either way. But what you're going to do is you're going to fill in the information. So what you're going to want to do is put these numbers in order, numerical order. Okay, so I would find all your 5s first. So the only 5 I have is this one right here. So that would be 53. So the stem is 5 and the leaf is 3. Then you're going to look at your 60s. So you've got 60, you've got 67, 65 would come before that, 69 is going to come after that, 68 is going to come before 69, 64 is going to come before 65, and then another 67, then you have a 62, and then you have another 67. So you're going to take those numbers and put them onto your stem and leaf. Okay, remember on the leaf, you only put the numbers that you use. So I have a 60, so I'm going to put a 0. I have 62, so I'm going to put a 2. I have 64, 65, and then I have 3 67s, so I'm going to put 3 7s, and then I'm going to put an 8 for 68, and a 9 for 69. So notice, I don't have a 61, so I didn't put a 1 here. I don't have a 63, so I didn't put a 3. Okay, so complete the rest of the stem and leaf, and then answer the questions. Number 1, the number 67 has a stem that is blank, and the leaf is blank. Number 2, how many people scored 65 and below? So think about, are we including 65 or not? Number 3, what is the range of scores? Okay, so the stem and leaf, you should have finished with a 72, a 76, and a 78, 80, 81, 81, 82, and then a 97. All right, so your answers should have been the number 67 has a stem that is, okay, 67 right here. So the stem is 6 and the leaf is 7. How many people scored 65 and below? So that includes 65. Okay, so I'm counting everything down here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people scored 65 and below. And then what is the range of scores? Well, the greatest was 97. The smallest was 53. So remember, range, we subtract the smallest number from the largest. So 97 minus 53. So 4 and 9 minus 5 is 4. So the range was 44. Okay? All right. And finally, scatter plots. Scatter plot is a graph that shows the relationship between two sets of data. So here we have the spending at the mall. Yay. Amount of time spent is right here. The amount of money spent is down here. Okay, so notice they're both labeled, and we have a label for the chart. So you're going to do the same thing as what we did before. You're going to label the graph. You're going to label your X, and you're going to label your Y. So I label the X the amount of time. Okay, so this is the amount of time spent at the mall. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 hours. And then the Y-axis is the amount of money spent. Okay, it ranges from 0 to 35. All right, so again, this is your Y, and this is your X. Same as when you did a ordered pairs in coordinate planes. All right, it says title or label the graph, which is what we talked about, and the X and Y axis on a scatter plot. All right. Okay, so now you're just going to plot the points, and this is exactly like you did ordered pairs. Okay, over, up. Okay, you're going to over, and then you're going to go up. So I'm just going to plot these points. Okay, amount of time was 2 hours. I spent $10. So I'm going to go over to 2 and then go up to 10 and plot the point. 6 hours, $35. So go over to 6, go up to 35. 3:17, over to 3, up. So here's 15. So 17 would be right about there, right? Okay, so finish plotting these points. So remember that the top is your X and the bottom is your Y. So finish plotting those points. And then it says how many people who spent 2 hours at the mall also spent more than $10. So use that graph to look at 2 hours and see how many people that would be. Okay, so what you should have looked at is 110, so over 1 up 10, 2:15, and then 2:18, which is almost a 20 but not quite, 5:25, so over 5 up to 25, 4:20, over 4 hours up to $20, 1:05, so over 1 hour up to $5, over 3 up to 15, and then over 2 hours up to 25. Okay, there's your scatter plot. So notice there's no rhyme or reason as to what's happening here. It just gives you an idea. So people who went to the mall for 2 hours also spent more than $10. How many people would that be? Well, here's $10 right here, so we're not going to include this one. Your answer should have been 1, 2, 3 people. Okay? There you go. All right, so that's all the information. Please make sure that you have filled in all of your papers, and then cut them out and glue each paper on a separate piece of paper in your journal. So one page back to back to back. Don't skip around. So go to the very last page that we wrote in your journal and start gluing these in. Okay?